When you take a child, I don't care who the kid is, when you take them into the hospital and you walk in the front door, you can see their blood pressure drop.
I look back on my experience at Scottish Rite Hospital as the most, and this is the great paradox, as the most loving, nurturing place other than my family in my life.
You know, hospital is usually a cold place. It's not a place that kids would want to come, but that doesn't happen with Julie. She loved it.
I think probably what I love most about Scottish Rite Hospital is the spirit.
That spirit and the extraordinary transformations that happen every day at Texas Scottish Rite Hospital for Children can be traced back to a single moment, the moment there was a need for a source of hope for parents and children who found themselves in the middle of a terrifying epidemic.
Just at that time, polio epidemics started cropping up all over the United States. And you never really knew where it was going to crop up. But when it came to a town, always in the summer, you'd all of a sudden have dozens and dozens and sometimes hundreds of kids developing polio. And it was scary for everybody because the doctors would, their family could get it or the next door neighbors might be getting it. And then it became evident too that the kids needed a lot of rehabilitation. And there weren't any places for them to go. And Dr. W.B. Carroll had returned to Dallas after World War I, become the first orthopedist in Dallas. And he became very interested in helping kids with polio, and he set up a little clinic in his office that met one afternoon a week.
And a group of Masons decided that it was going to be one of their charities. They wanted to help some children, and they felt there were enough children out there that really weren't getting care, so they got together, raised the money, and built a hospital here on this campus in 1921.
By 1933, little more than a decade after its founding, Texas Scottish Rite Hospital had treated 14,000 patients, a figure that doubled over the following 4 years. When W.B. Carroll died in 1944, his son, Dr. Brandon Carroll, took over as Chief of Staff. In the late 1950s, with polio nearly eradicated in the Western Hemisphere, the hospital focused on other conditions in the field of pediatric orthopedics. With this new medical focus came new vision, and physicians at Texas Scottish Rite began exploring innovative ways to treat children with scoliosis, clubfoot, hip disorders, and hand and limb differences with the same level of care and compassion it had used with polio patients. One of the earliest patients for an affliction other than polio was a boy from Waco with a severe case of clubfoot. His name was Lyndon Olson.
My parents brought me to Scottish Rite Hospital. I would have died had I not come here because of the gangrene in my legs. I was admitted to the hospital, and it was very traumatic for me. What was traumatic was not only the illness, but the fact that back in those days, when you were a patient at Scottish Rite, you weren't allowed to see your parents but 2 hours a week. After about 2 weeks in the hospital, it became apparent that I had to have my left leg amputated because they had tried to save the leg with saline solution and changing bandages and doing all kinds of stuff to my leg, and so they amputated that leg. Dr. Carroll came up to me and he said, he came in to, said, "Lyndon, how you doing?" I said, "I'm just great, Dr. Carroll, how are you?" And he said, "Got something I need to talk to you about." And I said, "Well, what's that?" He said, "Well, we're gonna have to make a decision about your leg, your right leg." And he said, and I said, "Well, what kind of decision?" He said, "Well, whether we're gonna amputate it or not." And I was laying there, and I'm 11 years old, had one leg amputated. He said, "Now, Lyndon, let me lay out the facts here." He said, "We can save that right leg, but you'll be on a crutch for the rest of your life." And he said, "Or we can amputate that right leg, and you won't have to be on a crutch." And he said, "And I need for you to help me make this decision." So I said, if we amputate that leg, well, I'll be able to play baseball. And he looked at me and he said, yeah, I think so. And I said, I think that the best decision would be for me to be able to play baseball. And let's do it. Boy, it was a lonely time.
Now, the only thing I want you to do, would you hold this for a minute for me? Hold it. Here, put your hands on it. Hold it. I'll hold it. You got to hold it tight. Don't let it go.
Ground was broken in 1974 on a new 6-story, 400,000 square foot building across the street from the original hospital. It opened in 1977.
The vision of the board when we moved over from the old hospital to the new hospital was to become a world-class pediatric orthopedic hospital.
Dr. Tony Herring was appointed Chief of Staff in 1975. Dr. Herring continued to work with Brandon Carroll until Dr. Carroll's death in 1981. In 2012, Dr. Daniel J. Succato was named the new Chief of Staff, only the 4th in Texas Scottish Rite history. And Dr. Herring became Chief of Staff Emeritus.
When I came, one of the first patients I met and got to know really well was Daniel Massey, who was 3 years old when I got here. And Daniel was born missing arms and legs at the elbow and knee level. And he had this vibrant personality that defied most everything we tried to do, because we were still fairly old-fashioned in our thinking.
I remember standing there when I first got my first pair of prosthesis. I was probably pretty close to 2 or 3 years old. 2 years old, and I was probably pretty close to 4 feet tall.
When did you come to the hospital? What year?
I came to the hospital in '75.
Yeah, that's when I came to the hospital.
Really?
I think I must have met you as one of my first patients.
That's amazing.
And I distinctly remember, those pictures we have of you, and we fitted you up in all of those prostheses, you know, the legs,
Yeah.
the arms, and I think just to show you could do it, you would use them, but then what'd you do when you got home?
Yeah, they didn't stay on very long, especially the arms. I didn't keep the arms on for
No.
more than a show, and then they were off. My mom used to say that when I would wear the arms, I would touch things with my cheek.
Yeah.
So I could have the sensation of touch somewhere.
Yeah. So what can't you do with your arms?
Oh, I can do anything. Yeah.
Yeah. And at 2, you could do anything. That was the funny part.
My first memory of doing something that was athletic was, it was in elementary school, and we were passing kids practicing soccer that were my age, and I told my dad, I said, I really wish I could have played soccer. And he stopped the car and enrolled me right there, and we ended up, I started playing soccer at that point, and kind of that stuck with me as you can't put your own limits, and he didn't allow me to ever do that. The ski trips, you know, if you could pick all of the things that made an impact on my life from the hospital, that's definitely number one. Definitely there was a tipping point there with my own awareness of being different and my own disabilities, and then also the same realization of, but it's not going to hinder me at all. And that just came from being around a bunch of other kids who had disabilities that were just, you know, doing phenomenal.
The hospital's annual amputee ski trip was established in 1981 to give teenage patients an opportunity to learn to ski. More importantly, the trip helps amputees establish the confidence they need to pursue their highest goals.
To really appreciate the research work that has been done here, you have to see the results.
That looks good.
In the 1980s, researchers at Texas Scottish Rite Hospital developed a spinal implant system to correct a range of spinal deformities.
We were not trying to develop a spine implant system. We didn't sit down and have a financial model to say, if we develop this and we can sell it, we can make X number of dollars. We sat down to develop a spine system to make life better for the kids. And that's all we were doing.
To me, it's the looking at the pie in the sky, sort of what do we think is unreachable by ourselves, but what can we accomplish with the team approach?
The goal in these organizations is to improve what we do. and to find better ways of treating children with these problems, and study the results of what we're doing, and always looking for a new way to do it that might be better.
Juliana, who suffers from a leg-hip disorder called leg perthes, is one of the many patients who've been helped by the hospital's research efforts.
I was feeling kind of bad, because I was afraid that I wouldn't be able to walk again.
Okay, is that a little report card?
It's the caring of everybody that works in here. I'm talking about the person at the front desk, the person at the specialty, that gets your paper.
Well, every time I get out of school to come here, I always say, yes, I'm going to Scottish Rite, because I love it so much, and it's my favorite hospital I've been to.
The question she had was, when can she return back to cheerleading? And we were able to assess the amount of healing that occurred and give her the good news that she could start doing certain activities, and that made her very happy.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
I was the beneficiary of the culture of this hospital. If it hadn't been for the Masons, the Scottish Rite Masons, that wouldn't have existed anywhere. If it had not been for people like Brandon Carroll, kids would have suffered. I believe that Dr. Carroll asking me, did I want to keep that leg or lose it, was a seminal day in my life, not because of the physical amputation, ultimately, but because it was the first time I really had to make a big decision that had big consequences, and I knew I could do it. I knew that I could make, as it turned out, what I thought was the right decision, and I haven't looked back. In terms of my life.
These people perform miracles. They perform miracles.
Somewhere over the rainbow, bluebirds fly. Birds fly over the rainbow. Why then, oh, why can't